Welcome to InnerGLOW, the podcast that helps you to ditch anxiety, judgment, stress, and self-doubt, and instead embody ease, confidence, flow, abundance, and self-love. I'm your host, Bhavna Meg, mindset and energy coach, and founder of Stepping Into You. I work with individuals just like you on emotional, mental, and energetic levels to help you to fall in love with yourself and glow from the inside out. This is episode 6. Today we're talking about our vaginas and more specifically, liberating them. Yes, I know, it's quite the statement and could mean so many things. But we'll be talking specifically about the shame and trauma held within our vaginas and uterus. And there's a shit ton of it. No gross puns intended, but all the ancestral stuff, all the downloaded stuff from family, from friends, society. It's a surprise that anything even works. In this episode, I'll share with you a micro amount of the shame and trauma that I became aware that I was storing, and just one or two of the things that I did that significantly changed my relationship with my vagina and uterus. Listen to the very end to find out how you can do the same, and trust me, it is going to change your freaking life like it did mine. Growing up, I didn't really have very much. Growing up, I didn't really have much of an awareness of periods and menstruating, and it wasn't. Growing up, I didn't really have much of an awareness of periods until obviously I had one, but I hadn't really had a conversation. Growing up, I didn't really have an awareness of what a period was, and of course, until I had my own, and growing up, periods and menstruating wasn't really something that we spoke about in my family. And my mum didn't have a conversation with me about having a period or what I was supposed to do. I remember having a sex education class in primary school and just actually learning about the reproductive organs, but that was really about it. And I recall on my first period, I actually felt really embarrassed to tell my mum and kind of kept it a secret and ended up using tissues as a pad, which was not very comfortable and quite disgusting feeling. But what was added to that in terms, as well as the embarrassment and I guess shame that I was already feeling about communicating that I was on my period, it was the fact that when I was on my period, as was part of my culture, we were to tell the family and we would have to sit on the side, not touching anything. So, not sitting on the couch. I mean, thankfully, we were allowed to in my home, but not sitting with anybody, not being able to go into the kitchen, not being able to go into the fridge to get food. The sense that I had around it was that when we were on our period, we were dirty. And that made it feel even more shameful. And I remember having a conversation with my aunt one time and asking her, well, why am I not allowed to, why do we do this? Why do we have to sit on the side? And her response was that it was so that we could have some rest. And my challenge to that was that if I'm having some rest, I want to get into the fridge and access chocolate. And to that, she didn't really have much more to say. I was a very inquisitive and challenging child and teenager and adult, and still am, and asked a lot of questions of why with our cultural practices. Anyway, so there was a lot of shame around having a period. And of course, going to social events, going to weddings or relatives' homes, if you were on your period, everybody knew about it, or you weren't able to go to these particular events because you were, as far as I could sense, you were unclean, you were dirty. And this was the feeling that I always carried with me and held with me for such a long time. And that's, reflecting on that is absolutely ridiculous. It's such a natural part of our being as women to have periods and to have healthy periods. And what I acknowledged through my teenage years and through my 20s and a lot of my 30s too was that I wasn't having healthy periods. They weren't regular, they were painful, I would get headaches. And I started to learn that there was obviously a lot of trauma trapped in that particular part of my body. And in the part of my body that is the vagina and the uterus, our reproductive organs, our sex organs. And in the Indian culture growing up, we used to watch a lot of Bollywood movies, and there's a massive amount of taboo. And I don't think it's there so much anymore, but there was a massive amount of taboo around even kissing on screen. But there was all kinds of other touchy-feely stuff between the male and female leads, like dancing in the rain and clothes all wet, and the male lead running his head and arms all over the woman's body. But anything that came close to about to kiss, that was taboo, which I felt was absolutely ridiculous. So there's always been this sense of shame, secrecy, taboo, not allowed around what is sexuality and what is a completely natural female reproductive process that is the menstrual cycle. Over the last 5 or so years, I've done a lot of work with my body in releasing shame and pain and trauma and anger and all of the different emotions that have been stuck and that I've been storing that have created ill health for me. And one of the things has been around the vagina and the uterus, and this tremendous amount of shame and trauma that's been living there. Now, when we talk about trauma, we often associate it with these grandoso things that must have happened. Like, I must have been stabbed in the uterus for it to have been trauma. I must have been sexually abused to have trauma. But small things that create an emotional impact, that's trauma. So never belittle the trauma that you may have experienced in comparison to somebody else. It's yours, it's how you feel, it's how you experience it. And if it's bad for you and uncomfortable for you, then it's trauma, and it's something that can be released out of the body so that you can experience more love, joy, peace, and balance in those spaces instead. Before we continue with the next part of the show, if what I've shared with you today is resonating with you, leave a review. It goes a long way to help share the love with others who are going through the same things and would benefit from the tips and tools to turn on their inner glow. Another way to share the love is by making a donation at patreon.com/steppingintoyou to share your love with me and with others. Now, one of the things that I did as part of my work with my body was a process that brought me into conversation with my reproductive organs. Well, actually, in this very first one, I did it specifically with my vagina and had a conversation with my vagina. It was done with, and this is going to sound weird now, it was done with a couple of friends. So there was three of us, and we were facilitating this process with each other. Nobody was naked, so I'm just going to put that out there. But we were going into energetic connection with each other's vagina so that we could do a balance for ourselves with our vagina. And what was really interesting was that when my friend went into this energetic surrogation for my vagina, I started laughing. And I started laughing because I could actually sense and see it in front of me. And my friend who was in energetic surrogation for my vagina, she said to me, "Why are you laughing at me?" And my instant response was, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing because I feel like I can see my vagina." And then she said to me that, "No, that's not me saying that. That's the message from your vagina. Why are you laughing at me?" And I was absolutely stumped. I could not believe that that was something that was coming from my vagina. I mean, I could believe it. I was gobsmacked. After doing this balance, through this process, we exchanged kind, loving, open words with each other. So myself and my energetic surrogated vagina. And it was an incredibly releasing process. Now, I've done this process many, many times with other parts of my body. And again, they're powerfully, powerfully releasing and have created so much balance. Now, what the fun thing is that after I did this particular process, I finally ordered and started using a menstrual cup. I'd been introduced to and been made aware of menstrual cups now probably about 15 to 17 years ago, and thought the idea of using them was disgusting. I had always had problems with tampons because I didn't enjoy putting my finger into my vagina to insert them when there was blood coming out, because I was holding all of this grossness, perception and feeling around having a period and menstruating and bleeding, that I wanted to be as far away from it and touch it myself as little as possible during that period. The thought of getting period blood on my hands made me feel sick. So after this process, wow, okay, things changed. I started using the menstrual cup, which only added to the level of connection that I have with my vagina and with my period, and of course, as a result, my uterus. Feeling into and really connecting with my cycle. And I went through a lot of change in my cycle, which was really interesting to observe. It started to come into a lot more balance. I started to experience more ease during my periods, and even the communication when I was sensing that there might be a bit of a headache coming on. I would be able to be more comfortable expressing, for example, in the workplace, I need to go home, I need to have a lie down, and not even having any shame about saying, I'm about to start my period, I'm on my period. And if anything, it would make other people feel weird, but I felt so comfortable in communicating that. And I think there's probably a lot in that in itself, being able to communicate, I'm on my period, I need some time to rest and honor my body. Okay, that was quite a bit. Well, the tip for today, it's more of a suggestion, I guess. If you haven't ever used a menstrual cup, I'd highly, highly, highly recommend it to get in touch with your menstruation, with your period, and to really be able to observe it in so much more of its entirety than using a pad, than using a tampon. The main tip for today is a variation on the process that I went through with my friends. And this is going to allow you to do this by yourself. You're going to sit in a quiet space and set an intention to have a conversation with your vagina or your uterus or both together, and really open up to ask the question or to feel into any trapped stress or trauma that may be sitting there and where that might be coming from. Now, we've introduced a breath to clear trapped energy in the body and stuck energy in the body in a previous episode. So go back and have a listen to that to familiarize yourself with the technique. But we're going to use that same process in this instance to really breathe into an intention that you want to send into that space. For me, when I went through this process, I communicated with my vagina, I love you. And this was super powerful and moved me in all of my being. So pick a statement, an I am statement that resonates with you in communicating that with your vagina or your uterus, and breathe that in to the space where you're holding any stuck energy. This will start to shift that stress and trauma out of your body, and you should start to feel more ease and more connection. And repeating this process with different statements is going to enhance that more and more. That's all for today. Let me know how you get on with that process. And join me next week for episode 7, Arranged Marriage, where I'll be sharing with you my experience with arranged marriage and how you can connect more deeply to what it is that you truly want for yourself and for your life and with your partner. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure to subscribe at steppingintoyou.com/innerglow so you don't miss any glowing possibilities. And if you'd love to support InnerGLOW, you can make a donation at patreon.com/innerglow. Sending you love, hugs, and magic.